The story of Ruth the Moabite will meet Ruth as the daughter-in-law of Naomi. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, was a prominent Israelite from the tribe of Judah, but when famine hit Bethlehem, he packed up his family and moved to Moab. Moabites were enemies of God's people, so we could immediately conclude that Elimelech's actions indicate a lack of trust in God's provisions because he planted his family in the middle of a people whose religious practices were despicable in the eyes of God. Elimelech dies. Their two sons marry two Moabite girls, Ruth and Orpah. Just as Rahab's title is often Rahab the harlot, Moabite describes Ruth. Both Ruth and Orpah were born and raised in paganism. Cruel and powerful priests led the worship of numerous gods, including Chemosh and Moloch. Children were placed on a downward slanted stone lap of Chemosh, where they easily rolled down into a roaring fire as human sacrifices. The Moabite fertility god required sexual perversion with temple prostitutes. How did a woman raised in such an immoral culture find her way into the genealogy of Jesus? The death of Naomi's sons left her in a precarious place with no protector or provider. She hears that the famine in Bethlehem is over, so tells Ruth and Orpah that they need to go back to their families and find husbands. She's going back to Bethlehem. Remember the Levirate law that eventually protected Tamar? Naomi references this law when she tells her daughters-in-law that she has no more sons to give them. Both girls insist they will travel with Naomi back to her home. Shortly after they begin their journey, Naomi once more tells them they need to go back to their families. Tearfully, Orpah returns to Moab, but Ruth makes her famous declaration in today's treasure and refuses to leave Naomi. Naomi and Ruth's friendship teaches us so much about the biblical practice of encouragement. Naomi was a widow, but so was Ruth. Ruth could have focused on her own grief, but instead, she read between the lines of Naomi's words and refused to leave her to make the long journey alone. What happened on the road to Bethlehem between these two women? Did they enjoy long talks, or were words unnecessary as they processed their shared grief? What we do know is that Ruth embraced the God of Israel as her own. She saw something in Naomi's family and perhaps in Naomi's own response to grief that drew her to the heart of God. Her relationship to him compelled her to reject the gods of her youth and to stay by Naomi's side. Orpah, though she heard the same stories, in the end, went back to her old life. The faith of Ruth identified her as a child of the living God. Though there is no description of Ruth in scripture, artwork depicts her as physically beautiful, perhaps because of her lovely inner spirit. Thank you, friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button and stay tuned till next time.